Brendan, how about that Overwatch news?
No, don't start like that. It's so fresh. I'm immediately upset.
You know, the worst part is, a day before it happened, I said, that's never coming out.
I didn't know we were also bringing up our private DMs immediately. Hold on, I have to adjust emotionally.
I actually posted that on Tumblr. It's like, whoops, there I go. Oh boy, here I go predicting the future again.
Listen, you can't blame me. Listen, it's not as though I'm optimistic at all. And it's not as though I trust Blizzard at all. It's just that I don't know what the fuck is wrong with me.
You dare to hope, that's the problem.
Yeah, and it's just, I've just compartmentalized it. So there's this little speck of me that's like, no, they would never do this and then not do the thing. As though they haven't been doing and then not doing the thing for 20 years. I don't know.
Life is pain. Hope fails. Now you understand.
To those of you who are listening and are just thinking, wait, who's that new voice? Welcome to the channel for the first time, a good friend of ours. If you've seen my Sylvana video or seen Lily's Gen 3 segment, you know who this is. The uninspired poet himself, the king of Mercy Maker, Brendan.
Hello. Hello. Wow.
I'm keeping that pause in.
McKay does that. She goes like on an overly long intro and doesn't know how to end it.
Nobody is going to be able to tell me shit all week now. Thank you.
I was going to do like a freaking wrestling announcement bit and then just like really hang very long on his name. I was like, Brendan! But then I realized I'm dangerously close to peaking my mic as is.
I've been sending you too many Rhea Ripley clips. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I did not give a shit about wrestling until Brendan sent me all those Rhea Ripley thirst trap TikToks.
Everything has changed.
You know, it's funny. There's a lot of people around me and content creators I watch that are really into wrestling. I could not give any less of a shit about wrestling.
Oh, same, but I could tell you every title Rhea Ripley has won.
Nice.
Of course. Look, you and McKay are kindred spirits. A muscular woman shows up and the both of you just go, huh?
Done.
If they had actually let Sylvanas have muscles in Shadowlands rather than giving them to Tyrande for some fucking reason, that's it. It would have been over. The both of you would have just conked out for the rest of the expansion.
I would have driven to Blizzard headquarters and been like, no, take her back out of the mall.
Yeah. Give us back our queen.
Oh, God.
Give us back the only good character the Horde had left.
Please, I'm begging.
You killed all the good ones. You killed Cairn. You wrote Thrall into like a weird angel boy and then into an Alliance simp. You killed Vol'jin.
Oh
What
my
is
God.
enough?
Sylvanas was the only one left. Now she's gone.
Should we actually start with WoW, or should we like knock Overwatch out of the park?
They did that themselves.
I feel like we could probably well, the thing is the fuck shit in WoW gonna be new? Cause I mean, anyone who watches this has probably seen a lot of my videos on WoW and they already know about most of the fuck shit. Like, they know what they did to Sylvanas. They know what they did, to most of the game. I mean, there is new stuff for Dragonflight, but...
Oh, we can get into like the shit in Dragonflight that for some reason has certain people shocked. It was like, wait, why would they make this narrative blunder as if, the narrative team changed at all? You hear someone say, hey, did you hear about the fuck shit with Blizzard? And every time, no matter what time of year it is, or what IP they're talking about, you could just say, you're gonna have to be more specific.
Yeah, do you have the slightest idea how little that narrows it down?
Like, fuck me, how many lawsuits are we on right now?
Dozens, right? It's
gotta be at least a dozen.
Like, they released that fucking, like, Lifeweaver hero on Overwatch, or, like, they announced him to distract people from the fucking, from the latest lawsuit. Or maybe it's the second to latest, I don't know.
Do you know what I saw from a dev, on Twitter, from a Blizz dev on Twitter from the Overwatch team recently? I saw, BlizzDev say that they actually are trying really hard to change things, to put out content people deserve, like with the Pride event, for instance. And that Blizzard is actually timing their shitty announcements around the work the dev teams are doing. And this dev said that he feels as though it's intentional.
That would not surprise me.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Hey, upper management ruining the things the hardworking devs do. What a shock. I feel like when, one thing people tend to fail to grapple with is that when we criticize Blizzard developers, we're not criticizing, Judy in the animation department who made that new kick-ass sword in the latest patch. No, we're criticizing, the Ian Hazzard-Costases, the Steve Denuzers, the Christy Goldens, the Mike Yabaras.
Right. And
the lead devs and the executives, the people in charge of everything.
Yeah, the people, who, shit runs downhill. The people at the top of the hill. And you're right, nobody grasped that, or at least it seems like nobody grasps that. You can't criticize Blizzard. You could literally say, I hate Blizzard. Blizzard is so anti-consumer. They fail to meet every promise they make, and somebody would be like, I can't believe you're sending the devs death threats. It's insane. Oh, yeah. I don't get it.
I used to take the whole thing of people are getting sent death threats seriously, but then I had people accuse me of sending them death threats for telling them to drop dead.
Right.
Which is such a generic way to say fuck off. And so it's well...
They make a 3-hour call out video because you tell someone to take a long walk off a short pier.
Yeah.
I think that Blizzard is actually guilty of creating these scenarios over and over and over again where they put the devs in the firing line. I think they're all too happy for the narrative to be stop harassing the devs, stop doing this, stop doing that. Nobody is actually doing that. But Blizzard wants people to think that people are attacking devs. And so it's a double-edged sword of the devs are in a terrible position to begin with because they work for Blizzard. And also, Blizzard is using them as a whipping boy. And so for as long as we keep being okay with that and being like, no, any criticism levied against Blizzard is actually being levied against these poor dev teams, they're not going to change or improve anything because they know that they have an entire, incredibly loud support base who are just going to do exactly what they know that they will. So until people allow people to criticize, and rightly so, Blizzard's monetization practices, Blizzard's failure to meet promises, what is their motivation to change? They have none.
Yeah, there is no motivation to change. And none of this has helped when you got people like Christy Golden who openly say all criticism is harassment.
Right.
Ooh.
And then you got people who agree with them. Fuck. I think Golden infuriates me the most because, I expect the kind of fuck shit from fucking frat boy douchebags like Alex Afrasiabi. It's not surprising.
No.
It's appalling, but it's not surprising. With Golden is one of the only senior women writers on the dev team, and she is one of the most virulently misogynistic of the bunch.
She is perpetually in her I'm not like other girls phase. And her writing confirms that.
Oh, absolutely it does. She is the ultimate example of a pick-me.
Yeah, and, infamous heroes gunning for her throne. Anyway. Okay, before we get to that stuff, because that's all on the bottom of the docket there. So, the fuck shit and WoW. Michaela, we all know what happened in BFA and Shadowlands. What's happening in Dragonflight?
Well, relating to the devs basically being whipping boys and meat shields, the devs basically doing grunt work are practically carrying Dragonflight right now. You hear people praising Dragonflight, more often than not, they're praising the art direction, the gameplay, which has gone through a few quality of life tweaks, especially with that freaking dragon riding mechanics, which I remember people loving, and the side quests. Because the side quests
are where all the goofy shit happens.
All the goofy shit happens, and where it's very obvious that it was written by someone other than a cishet middle to upper class white guy.
Well, yeah, it also has the fact that a side quest is expected to end.
Exactly.
So, Blizzard can't do, for those who aren't aware, a big fucking act of malicious writing Blizzard did, particularly in Shadowlands, is that the main reason anyone was in Shadowlands at all was to find out what's going to happen to Sylvanas. And so Sylvanas was basically in 2% of every patch. She was in 1 or 2 cinematics every patch, and that was it. And they kept stringing that along and encrypting it on the PTR and doing their damnedest to make sure nobody could figure it out, to keep people subscribing because they knew that was all they were there for. And all the actual quests you did for the majority of each major patch of Shadowlands was all a whole bunch of filler crap about the first ones.
And because they can't get away with that shit anymore, they actually have to make, like, the quests enjoyable and the characters, you know, actually, fun to be around. And for the most part, when it comes to stuff like separate from the main story, the devs are actually kind of nailing it. I mean, this is the closest I've ever come to actually liking Kalik, and that's mostly because Sindragosa's there, and... Hi, Sindragosa. Whew.
She likes the pretty ladies.
I do like the pretty ladies. But unfortunately, I say side quests because the main quest, like the main story, is where Dragonflight definitely shows its cracks, and for some reason this surprises some people. Alexstrasza, despite being like the woman on the expansion box, which if they still sell expansion boxes, maybe they do, I don't know. But yeah, she's like the front runner. She has done next to nothing in like 2 major patches so far. She has like one argument, she has like one fight with Raszageth, where she doesn't really like talk about stuff. Raszageth just goes, "You forced the Titan's edicts upon us all," and all that stuff. And Alexstrasza just kind of like doesn't say anything in response to that. They fight, and then it gets to the point where Rathian of all people has to save her, which, And since then, she's just kind of been squatting in like the fucking Red Dragon spot of the Isles, watching after eggs, looking after the Oathstone, and not really doing anything about the Primalists or the Primal Incarnates, and just, she's utterly lacking in agency despite her supposedly being a main character of the expansion. And when she's not just sending you off to do stuff and being inept like Celestia, there's a fucking deep pull for you there, she's being an utter centrist and telling the Draconids who want equality on the Dragon Isles that she's granting them equality not because of their violent revolts, but in spite of them. Yeah, you can tell a centrist wrote that questline.
So it's just the same problem we've always had. It's like characters just like, you know, Alexstrasza's on the box, but she's not in the story because that would require any of the lead writers to actually give a shit about women.
Right.
Yeah, and the other aspects, or aspiring aspects, are doing so much more than her. Like, Nosdormu and Chromie are handling the Infinites. Kalik and Sindragosa are trying to rebuild the Blue Dragonflight. Rathian and Sibelian are, or at least were, until, spoilers, Abyssian fucking decides to become the Black Aspect. Because Danuzer, I guess, wanted to make sure that his writing was #unpredictable because he thinks that's what good storytelling is, so he hypes up this whole thing. It's like, oh, who's gonna get the throne, Sibelian or Rathian? And anyone who's familiar with Danuzer's writing just goes, it's gonna be Abyssian. And it was.
I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that they love to use these characters that they know are money characters. They garner attention, they garner views, they, this, that, and the other. But Danuser does not have the writing chops to actually handle these characters, like Sylvanas, like Alexstrasza, who, Tyrande, even, who have decades of rich lore. Not all of it is well written. Don't get me wrong. But these characters are larger than Danuser is able to handle. They're also larger than Golden is able to handle. Because they are only capable of writing very small. And which is another reason why their whole, oh no, we're not doing one expansion stories anymore, blah, 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 blah. Well, I don't know why they're not doing one expansion stories anymore, because they can't even handle that. So for them to think that they're capable of carrying a story across 8 years is absolutely laughable. They can't even write Alexstrasza, who hasn't really been in this game for a while now. And everyone was excited to see Alexstrasza come back. Just like everybody was excited to see Sylvanas really doing things. So again, writing checks that they do not have the writing chops to cash. They want to use these faces because everybody knows them, but they can't put the meat behind them. They're incapable of putting the meat behind them. Because a woman is not allowed to have a story beyond whether or not she, like, can get pregnant, which that's a whole nother thing. Actually, that's it. That's all. Can the woman have a baby?
It's really not that. Like, it's not that they can't. Here's the kicker. It's not that they can't. It's that they won't. They could, like, the kicker is like, they want to, you're right in that they want to use these characters because they're big money characters. But Denuser already knows what story he wants to write, and it's a pretty bland, boring story. And so what happens is that the writers write the story and then awkwardly bolt the characters onto the roles that they think most closely suit them. And that's why characters' personalities tend to waver around so much because, like, depending on the writer, because the writer already knows what they want to write and then they just stick the characters into those roles whether they fit it or not. I mean, I'm not the first person to point out that, with basically everything the Lich King was up to in Legion, it was very clear he was slipping into villainy. And so some people have suggested, I think Portergage suggested it, and Haruma Redx suggested it as well. And I agree with it. I think that the Jailer's Major Domo was supposed to be Bolvar, and then Chris Metzen left, and Alex Afrasiabi swapped him out with Sylvanas at the last minute.
Yeah, I believe
That
it.
makes a lot of sense.
Because that's just what you can do. You could just swap these characters out. Especially big name characters who don't actually have characters. I mean, like, that's one of the reasons a lot of people thought, oh, well, I think Saurfang was handled pretty well. But the only reason you think that is because Saurfang has no personality to betray. He's not as intricately written in the past as Sylvanas was. He is a fucking meme character who does nothing. Likewise with Bolvar. Bolvar doesn't take part in any, like, before Shadowlands, Bolvar doesn't take part in many things. He stands in Stormwind, handing out a handful of quests, because that's just how classic WoW was. The major lore characters just kind of stood there. He dies in Wrath, and then that's it. That's all he does.
And then in Shadowlands, he proceeds to take up quite a bit of screen time, but really doesn't do anything besides fuck up. Like, Shadowlands starts with him fucking up.
Champion, we've found the Primus' sigil. You should take it to the Runekever.
That's right in the middle of Torghast. That sounds like a terrible idea.
Attendant, tell the champion that we should take the Primus' sigil to the Runekever. Are you insane? That's right in the middle of Torghast. That's a terrible idea. Champion, do what I said.
Fine.
Did you bring the sigil to Zovel's lair? Are you insane? This is right in the middle of Torghast. This was a terrible idea. That was easy. Why would you do something as stupid as bring the sigil right to... Huh. Lucky me.
If they worked only with characters who have no actual personality, you know, like your fucking Harrison Jones and your, what's some other major characters who just don't really have much character? Gelbin Mekatork, the Council of the Three Hammers.
Rokon,
yeah, there you go. If they just worked with them, it'd be fine, because then they could just make them do whatever the hell they want. But the problem is that they try to fit characters who already have established characters into roles that don't suit them, for reasons other than the role suits them. Like, so why did Sylvanas, it's like, people ask, like, why did Sylvanas burn the tree? Because Alex Afrasiabi fucking hated the fact that Garrosh got villain batted instead of her.
And I think it was either Denuser or Hazakastas a little while back, officially came out and said, yeah, we could have done better with, Sylvanas' motivation. That's a lesson we'll learn for next time, I guess.
Except they won't. Except they won't, because it's not like they didn't. Like I said, it's not that they couldn't, it's that they wouldn't. Because they kept Sylvanas' motivation a secret, so you would stay subscribed through the whole expansion and buy all those books. Like, that's an active decision. When they decide to release Folks and Fairy Tales and have one of the fairy tales be, ooh, here's a little bit of, maybe Sylvanas had her soul shattered. That's a deliberate act of malice.
Mm-hmm.
And Denuser wants to write that way. He wants to write constant cliffhangers. He wants to do nothing but write cliffhanger. He wants to keep you going because, you know, like every art school brat making their magnum opus cartoon on the Disney Channel, that's what he thinks good storytelling is.
And you can tell that a lot of this writing is malicious because it's only after extreme amounts of backlash that they decide to pivot. Case in point with the whole fucking shit with Ysera in this expansion. I was like, we're gonna bring Ysera back to be an aspect. I was like, okay, how are you gonna do that? We're gonna have Malfurion sacrifice himself, right off the heels of Tyrande already having lost so fucking much. Including, but not limited to, faith in her goddess, which I'm 100% convinced of. And then everyone was like, wait, what the fuck? Hasn't she suffered enough? I was like, and that was so heated that they decided to pivot. It's like, actually, there's a chance that once Ysera is done with what she needs to do, that Malfurion will come back. Maybe in the nebulous future. It's like, okay, that still doesn't really solve the problem. Also, instead of Ysera becoming the aspect, she's just coming back to teach Marithia how to be an aspect. I was like, that still doesn't solve the problem.
I love it. Hasn't she suffered enough? Oh, honey, have you seen Jaina? Have you seen Sylvanas? This is what they do. They're setting Tyrande up for a villain arc.
Probably.
I figured that's what fucking BFA and Shadowlands was supposed to be, and the only reason they haven't done it yet is because there's so much backlash for it. So they're just gonna keep teasing it until people stop caring.
I think the one I'm kind of split on is Rathian, because a lot of people don't like the fact that Rathian's kind of made to be this incompetent spawd in order to prop up Abyssian. But the problem is, Rathian's always been an incompetent spawd.
It's my understanding that Rathian's characterization in Dragonflight, in their perspective, only works if he wasn't in BFA and the last time we saw him was Miss Pandaria. Like, if it was straight from MoP to Dragonflight, people probably wouldn't have issue with this, but they think Rathian had too much development in BFA for this particular characterization to be justified.
But that's the thing, he didn't. I mean, look, Rathian in MoP shows up with big plans, fucks them up, and has to get rescued by the champion. Rathian in BFA shows up with big plans, fucks them up, has to get rescued by the champion. Rathian in Dragonflight shows up with big plans, fucks them up, has to get rescued by the champion. It's almost constant with this guy. Every time he shows up, every time he shows his face on Azeroth, the champion just gets a shudder and is like, I just felt a cold wind.
Now, if you want to argue that Rathian's characterization is the result of Blizzard just very much disrespecting dark-skinned men and just want to show them in very unflattering lights, that's a solid argument. That's something that doesn't really have a counter.
Well, actually, it does have a counter. Abyssian.
I suppose.
That's the thing. They've been a little better about that because, people will immediately notice it. Whereas the audience Blizzard has cultivated will generally push back against any accusations of misogyny because Gamergate trained gamers to immediately vomit at the sound of the word. But I think people pick up on this stuff a lot more. I mean, you saw the huge backlash that Kalimdor book had.
Oh yeah. The one where people demanded to know who was responsible, and the author didn't say a fucking word, but the author's wife said, "Oh, he was just working with the lore, and it's the editors who are actually racist," and just not giving any names, just chalking it up to the racist ghosts that haunt Blizzard's headquarters.
God, that was such a joke.
And of course, he's the head lore manager. It's that's the thing. That's what every author of the WoW books says. The author of the WoW books have way more creative control than people like to think they do. Largely because whenever they get criticized for anything, the authors of the WoW book, the shit authors, will throw up their hands and go, "Oh, it wasn't me. It was up there." Despite the fact that it's "Oh, I'm not responsible for the problems. It was them up there." And it's Christy, you are the only one who puts your pregnancy fetish in these fucking books.
Yeah, I was about to say, I can't think of any other writer who's done that, who just so perfectly exemplifies Golden's particular body clock.
She just makes my skin crawl. Her writing just makes me feel so disgusting.
Other people will write Jaina Proudmoore, and it'll just be, I'm very stressed out from leadership. Trying to keep peace between the Alliance and the Horde is a 24/7 job. Christy Golden will write Janen and it's just like, oh Arthas, my barren womb.
Yeah, and that's her entire personality. Her entire personality is like, oh, I'm stressed not because of leadership, but because my biological clock is ticking. And it's like, no. You can't or can get me started on her, but
I'm almost convinced that this is happening because like Christy Golden is like in her 60s and still doesn't have any kids, and so the ticking of her biological clock has become as loud as a malfunctioning lawnmower engine.
Absolutely.
I would be shocked if she hasn't gone through menopause already, and it's just having this giant
midlife crisis all over everyone's face.
Because
exactly.
I think that, Christy Golden and Danny Sir, they're supposed to be writing fantasy stories, but they're not writing fantasy stories, they're writing their fantasy. And that's not what fantasy is. They're very boring and vanilla, and that's never been what the genre has been about. So it just makes their storytelling, makes the stories that they tell, they don't fit in the genre, they don't read like fantasy. There's nothing particularly magical about them. They just write these, we know that Danny Sir is responsible for a lot, but Christy in particular, outside of little vignettes, her broader storytelling is god-awful. She cannot write grand moments. She can't write grand characters outside of I'm sad, so I have to sleep with this man who happens to be on the same page. She can't do it. Period.
I mean, look, the thing is, this is largely becoming a problem now. It was a problem in pretty much throughout all of WoW. But the thing is, while Metzen was in charge, WoW was very much a character-focused fantasy story. And so, while much of Azeroth wasn't really explored, there was a great deal of storytelling in regards to characters, how they relate to one another, the violence and bigotry between the Alliance and the Horde. Like, when writing Rise of the Lich King, there aren't many opportunities for Christy to insert her pregnancy fetish into things. About the closest we get to it is like during the fall of Silvermoon in one particular moment, which I will not repeat, which is then repeated again in the Sylvanas book. But for the most part, like, just by virtue of how the story is written, you gotta stay on topic. But nowadays, and I think, like, this actually frustrated Metzen to the point that it was, like, one of the reasons he ended up quitting. The writers who aren't Metzen want World of Warcraft to be D&D. They want it to be all world building, wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle. They want it to be a thing like in D&D, where in D&D, you know every god, every deity, you know whether or not they exist, you know exactly what they've done and what they've done and where they've been and all of their history. But the actual people in the world of, what's it called, Faerun?
Yeah.
But the actual people of the world of Faerun, you know nothing about them. You know very, very, very little about them. You know them only in broad stereotypes. Like, you know that the High Elves are arrogant, and the Dark Elves are evil. And the humans are humans.
Yeah, and that's very important in a game like D&D, because it's not about their storytelling, it's about your storytelling as the player. That's not what Warcraft is supposed to be. You are playing World of Warcraft.
I think it really fails D&D a lot. I think D&D, like I said, Warcraft is going to have the same problem of D&D. It is explaining too much. It is explaining too much that does not need to be explained. Did we need to know what the afterlife in WoW looks like? No. Do we need to know, I think the moment they published that cosmology chart, that was kind of the death knell of WoW. Because that is the kind of world builder's disease that kills any story instantly.
I agree with that, and that's why I stopped playing.
I mean, look, we all love Tolkien, we all love his stories, we all love his stories, but at the same time, Tolkien has always had a big problem of needing to tell us the backstory of every single fucking twig.
Man, we'll spend a chapter and a half describing a fucking desk.
Not wrong.
But, yeah, unfortunately, the Danuser and Golden just don't get the fact that Warcraft was, by Warcraft 3, a very character-based story. That's the reason Warcraft 3 was so well received compared to, Warcraft 1 and 2, which, besides, the oldest nerds, no one talks about. And why the Warcraft movie did so much more to emulate the storytelling style of Warcraft 3 onward, despite telling a story back during the Alliance good, Horde bad style that Blizzard was going for. Because people liked the characters. The whole idea of hero units and them having the major stories throughout the campaign, that's when they struck gold, and that's why people grew to love so many of those legacy characters in WoW as their stories continued. And I don't mind the idea of the champion of Azeroth having like a bit more agency in the story, but I mean, it was those legacy characters that made people love Warcraft and not the player. But they don't see it that way. They just see those characters as vectors for their particular world building and social and biological anxieties.
The thing about Warcraft 3 is that of all the main characters in Warcraft 3, not one of them is a quintessential good guy. Not one of them is like your typical RPG hero. One sticking point I've always found is that the new writers are really into the idea, like, you see the way they write Anduin, and it's like, he is just the goodest golden boy paladin of just the goodest bit of righteousness and virtue. And every time he shows up, I just want to remember, you guys do know why this franchise sold so well, right? The franchise did not sell well by giving you the bastion of goodness, the Paladin. The franchise sold so well by giving you the Paladin, scumbag, actual nutcase, complete incel loser, like...
Right, because nobody plays WoW to be told, like, what's right and wrong. That's ridiculous.
What made the franchise popular was like, hey, you know that old humans good, orcs bad, that's been the case since Fellowship of the Ring? Oh yeah, we all know that. Well, what if we turn that around? So you play an evil paladin for 2 campaigns, and then you play a peaceful, in touch with nature orc, and then you play a fucking arrogant elf who gets their shit kicked in. Like, the notion of what's good and evil in WoW gets turned on its head in Warcraft 3, and that's the part people fucking loved. And then in the expansion, what do? You play as a demon guy who can't really be considered good or evil. You play as as an elven mage who can't really be considered good or evil. You play as a dark ranger who can't really be considered good or evil. And then you play as Rexxar, who is also there.
Oh no, Rexxar.
Oh, speaking of several things, one, the fact that they kinda nailed it with Sylvanas, like, right off the bat with Frozen Throne, where they just, throughout her 3 missions, which are like my favorite missions in all of Warcraft 3.
Oh yeah.
They establish her as someone who does bad things to worse people, and I think that was a winning formula. And if they stuck with that, that would have been great. Oh god, speaking of Anduin though, another reason why Golden fucking sucks is that she so regularly uses divine authority as justifications for a lot of her story decisions. Like, Jaina can't process her trauma of Theramore in anything other than just stay a pacifist and get yelled at when you don't. Because all the other timelines show her just being the destruction of the whole world because she's angry about Theramore. We can't kill Garrosh at the trial because the Celestials decided that the people of Azeroth, the Horde and the Alliance, they were the ones on trial, and you had to learn to aspire to rise above your evil, and this is totally how the Nuremberg trials work. No, totally, we promise.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna give Golden a pass on that one, because you try being the author who has to lead from Garrosh was being held by both factions, and then we have to get him to outland in the past somehow. It's like, Christy, you handle that for us. So you know what? I'm gonna give Christy a pass on that, and that alone. And that's the only thing I'm gonna give her a pass on, because the setup for Warlords of Draenor was so fucking stupid.
Okay, one pass there, but...
Yeah, I'll allow it.
One pass there, but because comedy comes in 3s, Anduin has to be the goodest boy, and Sylvanas has to be the evilest bitch, because the light in Anduin's head tells him that this is it. And the light in Anduin's head is basically the writer saying, see, Anduin's good, Sylvanas is evil, because she doesn't rise above her trauma, but Anduin totally does.
Yeah, I remember when Golden actually said that. It's like, well, Anduin's better than Sylvanas because he rises above his trauma. This is the funny thing. This was before this was like before all the sane players left, and a whole bunch of people just went, bitch, what trauma?
Right.
He got a bell dropped on him once. And they just continued that. They just continued Anduin playing Trauma Olympics. But because Anduin hasn't actually suffered at all, God, it was just, like, Golden, I mean, look, Golden's been thirsting after Anduin since Cataclysm when he was 14. And so, that's all it is. Like, everyone, like, people often accuse, like, Sylvanas of being Steve Denuzer's waifu. Anduin is Christy Golden's actual waifu.
Yeah, 100%. It's disgusting.
Anyway, I think we've hammered the WoW thing into the dirt because we're running on 45 minutes now. So, Overwatch.
Oh, Lord.
I feel ill immediately.
I'm honestly, I'm not angry at Overwatch because, I think, I'm gonna be honest, and I apologize for this, Brendan. I think anyone who kept playing Overwatch after the spray boxes fiasco is a fucking fool who deserved what they got.
Look, I don't have anything to say to that, but I have a lot of things to say about Overwatch.
And we will listen to you because we're good friends.
Thanks. I'm fine. Anyway, no, so Overwatch. I actually didn't play Overwatch when it was a big fandom thing. I actually didn't start playing Overwatch until most, if not all, of the, the larger names in the fandom had already left. I actually just really enjoyed the game. It's very different from any other FPS game. That's why it was a big deal when it came out. I started playing after the first death of Overwatch. And, during the 3-year content drought. And, it was just really fun. It was the first game that I could play where, I'm hearing impaired and there's just something about the sound design in the game, the mechanics of the game that were just different. And I was able to play it and I was able to feel good at it. And I also loved, Lily, don't, reach through my monitor and hit me. I love the characters in Overwatch. I love the character design in Overwatch. And I know that it's obviously not lore heavy and they just canceled PvE, but I just love listen, there's something about a blue woman who has been through a lot and the world shits on her. I identify with that.
Oh, gee, I wonder what it was about that resonated.
But I just, I like the characters and I like the intention. Does that make sense?
The intention?
Yeah, I like the original intention of Overwatch. I like where they may or may not have been going with the story. I think they could have told a lot of good stories, much like they could have told a lot of good stories in WoW. I think that Blizzard is just, every single IP fails and falls short when it comes to execution. I think WoW is terrible, but I think Overwatch is the greatest of all of their failures when it comes to execution.
I think it's largely because, like, WoW had a lot of goodwill to burn.
Mm-hmm.
And they had stories on the back end. Frozen Throne left, like, so many different stories on the back end that they could burn through for a while. And then they had Mists of Pandaria, which, people came to really enjoy and really like. Once 5.1 came out with a real story. But the thing about Overwatch is that it kind of, like, it betrayed what it was going to be right from the word go. Like, you have all of these colorful characters with rich backstories, but it's like, hang on, this is a multiplayer MOBA shooter. And immediately, once that clued in, cause like, that was the point where like, interest in Overwatch outside of like a passing interest in maybe playing a few matches, but interest in Overwatch as a story vanished. Because immediately I thought of League of Legends, which has pages upon pages upon pages upon pages upon pages of lore. And what do you do in the game?
Press buttons.
Does any of it matter? Does any of it matter in the actual game? No, it doesn't. And like the most that has come out of League of Legends from a like in terms of story is a shitty soap opera.
What I will say though about Overwatch and the disparity between the fact that it was supposed to be the lore heavy FPS team shooter. That's what it was supposed to be, and that's why everybody was so excited about the game. Is that they did an incredible job of creating class fantasy. Not for all the heroes, but more so with Overwatch than any other team shooter. Valorant, for example, with all of the other ones that are all the same, you can get on the character and that's it. You saw him in the hero select screen. And now you can go get the same gun as everybody else has. You can go get the same armor as everybody else. But when you select a hero in Overwatch, you are that hero. If you select Widowmaker in Overwatch, you land one good shot, the other team is scared of you. And you very much feel that class fantasy. And so you can connect with the characters in that way, even though the actual gameplay isn't lore heavy.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I think the fact that other games struggle with that class fantasy is not really a praise of Blizzard. It's a negative of those other games. Like, I struggle getting into any other MMO outside of SWTOR because, like, for most fantasy MMOs, their classes are just so boring. Either their classes are completely and utterly uninspired, like fucking Arcade. They're using this classless system, which just turns every character into a fucking jack-of-all-trades bard, like the kind of game that would, like, it's clear the game was made by somebody who hates making decisions. or it's like Final Fantasy XIV, which is just particle effects. Congratulations, you can't see anything. And like, I have never seen an RPG with a class as well designed and plays as beautifully as the Fury Warrior.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Affliction Warlock. Or the Demo Warlock. If there's one thing Blizzard can do, they can make fun gameplay with good animation and good sound effects.
Yeah?
Because they have a very cartoon art style, and they stick to it outside of the 4 cinematics and BFA for some reason. They stick to it. So that's kind of like, but the thing is, that should be a bare minimum standard for the industry.
Agreed.
Like, the only reason it doesn't happen is because so many other games keep chasing classless systems. They keep getting away from character classes. Like, actually, you know what? One game had class design as good as World of Warcraft, and it was Mass Effect 3.
Oh, yeah, the Vanguard is so much fun.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if have you played Mass Effect, Brendan?
I haven't. I'm sorry.
I should show you footage of the Vanguard because, okay, just in terms of like FemShep Vanguard, Jennifer Hale charging at people at Mach 5 and slamming the ground to create shockwaves, all while grunting like a tennis player.
I'm already a fan.
There we go.
Immediately.
There we go.
On board. Fully.
There we go. Already a fan. Oh god, Mass Effect 3 really nails it. And I think they nail it for like most of their classes. I think the Engineer and Sentinel are just kind of shitty adepts, but whatever. But World of Warcraft always nailed class design in a way that a lot of games, again, it's not that they can't, they just won't. Because they would rather chase classless systems. Like Mass Effect Andromeda did. And so I don't really consider class fantasy a point in Blizzard's favor. I mean, when Overwatch came out, who was their biggest competitor? Team Fortress 2?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But, you know, I definitely agree with you there. You know, and then class fantasy aside, everybody being so attached to these characters and, you know, developing attachments to embodying them so much in the gameplay because of class fantasy. I think that, you know, the few people who remain from fandom and a lot of people who had mains that they were very attached to clung on because there was always the promise of the reason we're not doing shit and the reason we, almost never balance the game, and the reason we haven't released any new maps or content for years and years and years is because we are going to give you the stories that we promised you in 2016, and they're going to be amazing. In fact, they're going to be so amazing, we're going to take this game that you all love for some ungodly known reason offline to give you a new, better game with those stories. And so everybody was like, oh, you know what? This game is shit, but hey, PvE is coming. And everybody, you know, that was enough. And Blizzard knew that was enough because everybody was so attached to these characters. Because when you give somebody a shell and they can project onto that shell and embody that shell, it just becomes intrinsically a part of not so much who they are as a human being, but certainly when you have a game and that's the only game that you play, that does become a part of you on some level. So the promise of having that character further developed was, you know, was enough. And that's why it was so crushing. Even when eventually and inevitably, you know, it was like, this is not going to happen. The moment that it actually, you know, happened was still kind of crushing, even if you had no real expectation of it.
I generally feel in regards to Overwatch's story is when did Overwatch first come out?
2016.
2016. Simple thing. If they wanted to, they would.
Yeah.
They did not want to. Because if they cared about the story at all as just a means to hook you in, either with a character you could quote unquote relate to, or a character that's just like your Blorbo from WoW, or a character that is a thirst trap, if they cared about the story anywhere beyond that, they would have made a game. They wouldn't have made a hero shooter. Blizzard's problem when it comes to storytelling is that they only make multiplayer games. World of Warcraft, MMO. That's an RPG. It's expected to have some degree of a story, even if it's like threadbare and you have to do most of the work. And I think a lot of people preferred it when it was like that. Hearthstone. It's fucking Yu-Gi-Oh! Heroes of the Storm. It's a fucking action RTS. It's Super Smash Bros, but for League of Legends. Which is why it always fucking baffled me when they added original Nexus heroes.
Yeah.
Overwatch. It's just a multiplayer shooter. It's Call of Duty map packs. It's Team Fortress 2 with butts. Diablo, like, when they released Diablo 3, a lot of people were confused as, like, there's a lot of systems in Diablo 3 clearly meant for online play, and it just didn't gel with the fact that Diablo 1 and 2 were single-player RPGs, because that's just what Blizzard is now. And Diablo 4 is gonna be the same way. Diablo Immortal was the same way. Diablo 4 will be the same way. It's just what Blizzard is now. They make multiplayer lootathons with a story awkwardly bolted on so you'll get invested.
Because that's the only way to make a live service game.
Well, yeah. They're the original live service peddlers. And they've been the original live service peddlers since they released Hearthstone. They have not made an actual, primarily single-player campaign-driven game in 13 fucking years.
And that's what Overwatch was supposed to be.
The last one was StarCraft 2.
Oh, fuck.
That was the last one. People always wonder, are they ever going to make Warcraft 4? They will not. They're not going to make Warcraft 4. Not the Warcraft 4 you want. Not the one with like a campaign and a story mode with a multiplayer as like the second half of the game. If they make Warcraft 4, it's going to be multiplayer only, and it's going to introduce new Warcraft characters who exist only as a blurb on a character select screen. That's what Warcraft 4 will be. Because that's what Overwatch was. It's what Heroes of the Storm was. It's what Hearthstone is. You know, people praise the storytelling in Hearthstone, but I think that's largely because the writers of Hearthstone know what it is they're actually making, and so all their stories are goofy, tongue-in-cheek stuff. Hearthstone has not tried to tell a serious, gut-wrenching story. Hearthstone's last story was a joke trial for Sylvanas Windrunner.
Oh, yeah.
The Dark Lady did not commit this unspeakable act. Where the jailer is the judge.
Yeah. Oh, fucking hell. It does seem that Blizzard is aware that they stumbled into this, people like our stuff because of, the potential for single player content either by complete accident, or even back then they knew that they just needed strong characters and the promise of a story to rope you into their fucking multiplayer live service. And I don't begrudge anyone, especially not Brendan, who got invested in into Overwatch's approach of promising these wonderful stories alongside these colorful, dynamic characters, because Blizzard did make that promise, and even if you're savvy to their practices, it's not wrong to expect better. It's not wrong to expect them to stay true to their word, because they're a business offering you a product, and if they sell you on that product, you have a right to expect it to work. And the fact that it doesn't is a mark against them, and in Overwatch 2's case, potentially a future lawsuit. I think someone's getting on that.
I feel pretty strongly about...
Yeah, because they promised a PvE experience, and they didn't deliver, and they only made Overwatch 2 because they needed to promote some sort of service. Brendan, what was it?
The Battle Pass, the, skin shop, Overwatch, you bought Overwatch 1, and then forevermore, unless you very much wanted to buy loot boxes, which this is another topic entirely that I'm not getting into, you could obtain everything in Overwatch 1 for free, and that's not what Blizzard wants to do. But the bait and switch...
I'm sorry to cut in, but you want to know something fun? Overwatch 2's new terms of service bans players from class action lawsuits.
What?
Wow, I can't imagine why they would include that little tidbit.
New updates to the terms of service. You agree to be 18 plus on voice chat. You agree to only sue Blizzard individually and only to get any purchases back. And you agree to get banned for cheating.
Oh my god. Oh, wow. How do they get away with being so transparent? How? Especially with the PvE thing. Especially right, like with the TOS thing, I just found out about, you just told me for the first time in my life that you can't file a class action lawsuit against Blizzard.
Well, that's the thing. Well, that's the thing. I mean, just don't agree to the new terms of service. It's like, I never agreed to that. I stopped playing Overwatch the instant you put this out. The instant you canceled PvE.
Right. Man. Oh, they are so disgusting. They are so fucking vile. And every corporation is. We don't have to pretend that every corporation isn't terrible. But Blizzard is like, they don't hide it even a little bit. Not even slightly. They don't even provide the service. I don't...
Unfortunately, that's America. They're an American company, and America lets corporations get away with murder. This was something that kind of resonated with me, was like, Haruma Redx did a video on why there are no positive WoW content, which, there's plenty of positive WoW content, but it's mostly just Blizzard feet kissing. But basically, the notion is nobody wants to defend a company, because companies do things, and this was the part that really stuck out, because companies do things in the name of profit that would be sociopathic if they were done by a person.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
And I think the fact is that if a person did any of the shit Blizzard was doing, they'd go down as a fucking serial killer. But companies can do this shit. Like, if I went out and ran someone over with my car, I'd go to prison for manslaughter. If a car company is willfully negligent in producing a car in such a way as that it kills thousands of people, they get a fucking fine. They get a fucking fine. The CEO does not have to go to prison.
Yeah.
The executives do not have to go to prison for signing off on any of it. They get a fucking fine, and that's it.
And then not only that, but there are fanboys defending them to the death about it.
And they won't just get a fine. They will get a fine that will then be reimbursed by a tax credit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I didn't even realize that was a thing.
It's not, like, specifically a thing, but companies get fined in such a way as it does not make a dent compared to the credits they get back from the government every year.
And they can manipulate those fines that they pay out in such a way that it changes their tax bracket. It never hurts them. Ever.
Oh, well, now I'm extra sad.
Me too. Every day.
Oh yeah, it's something that's worth being sad. It's something that's worth being sad about. Like, don't ever let anyone tell you that your anger is misplaced. Like, you are right to be angry. You should not just roll over and accept this. You should be ready to kill and eat the people responsible. Blizzard thinks they can get away with murder because they can get away with murder. They have literally murdered one of their staff.
Oh yeah.
When they harassed that woman to the point she committed suicide, they murdered that woman.
Mm-hmm.
1000%. But Bobby Kotick did just say that Blizzard did its own internal investigation and found no incidences of harassment.
Oh, of course they did. We did our own internal review and we decided we'd done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
I honestly think, like, in regards to any way we treat corporations at all, always think, if you were a parent and you did this with your child, would you be considered an absolute lunatic? Like, if your child broke a fucking plate, and you said, why did you break the plate? And the child said, I've done my own internal review, and I have concluded I've done nothing wrong. If you accepted that, you would be a fucking idiot. If you accepted that, you would be an unbelievable fucking tool. People would laugh at you. People would openly laugh at you. If people would laugh at you for doing it with a child, you should not be doing it with a fucking corporation. The fact of the matter is that there is no solution for corporate fuckery other than regulation. People will argue it's like, oh, you should just take your money elsewhere. But, corporations have caught wise to that. It's why they like monopolies so much. Monopolies let them do whatever they want. Republicans will always say, you should favor the capitalist solution. Nope. The solution is regulation. How do you stop a company from doing some shitty business practice? You make that business practice illegal. Heavy penalties.
But then they'll just take their business elsewhere.
Good. Like, if you say, oh, we're gonna close Blizzard's tax loopholes, and Blizzard says, okay, we'll take our business elsewhere. Good. Get the fuck out of the country.
Right.
You should always treat the rich the way the right wing treats immigrants.
Oh.
Ooh, put that on a shirt.
Spicy.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, even if a lot of Blizzard's foulest practices are common knowledge, they still have a shit ton of enablers in the community.
Oh, yeah. Look. Granted, they have more enablers now, because a lot of people just left WoW and put it behind them. Not a lot of people have left WoW, or like Overwatch and are still talking about it. Most people leave this stuff and put it behind them. A lot of the people who quit over what they were doing to Sylvanas and BFA, have no idea what's going on in Dragonflight. They don't care. They're off playing Final Fantasy XIV or whatever.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I also don't know what's going on in Dragonflight aside from what people say on Twitter.
I know the basic abridged version. Occasionally I'll just pop into Porter Gage, who... I love Porter Gage. He's got the memory of a goldfish.
Blizzard does some fuck shit. Porter Gage calls them out on it. Blizzard does some good stuff. Porter Gage praises it. But then Blizzard goes back to the fuck shit, and Porter Gage is like, what? I thought they learned their lesson.
Never, ever will Blizzard learn their lesson.
They never learn. They'll never learn their lesson.
My brother in the Dark Lady, I love you, but...
Please, just a little bit of pattern recognition. Eternal optimism of the spotless twink.
I can't even go into the fucking WoW forums just because of how foul they are. I went, one of the first times I went to the WoW forum, when I started playing, I saw this one thread. It was ideas for LGBT rep in WoW. I was like, oh, that's cool. I go in and the OP, this one who started the thread, was making a very strong case for this, that, and gays don't exist in this world. Shut up. Stop trolling.
Increasingly,